silence les cœurs des gens amoureux. Hey guys, so welcome to my foundation collection. I have a lot. This is going to be a long video, but you guys have been asking for a video basically compiling every foundation I have. So if you were one of the people really excited about it, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what collection videos you guys would like to see in the future. And of course, let's just get on right in. This is my entire foundation drawer. You can see there is quite a lot here. I prefer a light to medium coverage foundation that truly looks like skin, but whether it is dewy, super skin-like, really anywhere in between I do like, as long as it manages to sink well into the skin and not appear as a lot of makeup once it's applied. First, starting off with a total like classic fave that I've been really enjoying, as you can see, because it's pretty messy. This is the Shiseido Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Foundation. Now, there's something really unique about this formula. You know, when it first came out, it definitely got a lot of attention, I think, but this is one of those foundations that I think will stand the test of time. I totally think that this formula itself has longevity. Why is there a hair on this? So the idea of the formula is that it refreshes itself throughout the day. So, you know, if you tend to get more creasing or if you find that your makeup sort of breaks up, the idea of this foundation is that it will refresh itself throughout the day to keep that from happening. When you first hear that, it sounds a little bit gimmicky, but I think really what this foundation is perfect at is being both a beautiful, creamy, medium coverage that looks very skin-like, but is also really appropriate if you want something that's more long wear. I'm not a huge long wear foundation liker, or they tend to not be the formulas that I gravitate towards because some of the formulations can just be a little bit heavy on the skin. This is one of those foundations that will give you the coverage that you want. It will give you just such a soft, creamy, and natural looking look to the skin, but will also last and look good as you continue to wear it. I just find this to be such a well-rounded formula. The shade range is there, and I wear it a lot on my channel for those exact reasons. I know I'm going to be wearing this one for a long time and repurchasing for a while. I actually have the shade 140 out on my hand today. This is a very good shade match for me. Definitely in my top 3 foundations that I've been wearing this year. Next, we have the NYX Bear With Me Tinted Skin Veil. Now, this is a pretty new to me product, but I have been using it more and just really enjoying the look that it gives my skin. So I have the shade Vanilla Nude. I was honestly a little bit worried about this foundation, or, you know, the skin tint just not giving me enough. I have found that every single brand comes out with a tinted moisturizer now, and some of them just feel a little bit lackluster to me, and I was nervous about this being one of those, but I'm just really pleased with the look of this once it's applied. It's not too dewy. Sometimes I just don't want a super dewy look to my skin. Should I zoom you guys in a little bit closer? Here, I think that's a little bit better. So yeah, I just love how natural the look of this is. It sinks into the skin very well. I think that you apply it and then it kind of just sets down and, you know, sinks back in to give you a very natural look. The shade range is really good as well. I just think this is going to be a really easy everyday product that, you know, you can just pick up at the drugstore. Honestly, I don't have a single complaint about it, and I'm really happy that I picked this one up. So if you were thinking about this, if you were wondering my thoughts, I think it's a really great option. Next up, we have the Rare Beauty, what is this called again? It's called like the Weightless Touch Foundation, I believe. I just did a freaking review on this and I forget. I have the shade 140C, and again, I just did a whole review on the Rare Beauty line, but if you have already seen that, then you probably know that I wasn't a huge fan of this foundation. There are a few things that I do like about it. One, I love that it does come in a doe foot. Just makes it so easy, and with everyday quick makeup, I just find that this is such an easy product to just swipe onto the skin. It really blends like absolutely effortlessly. There is something about this formula that's just like, you know, in 2 seconds it's done and it's blended, which again, I think that's why I think of this product as such a great everyday foundation for someone that prefers a formula like this. An effortless blend is really what I'm looking for in my everyday foundation, but there are a couple of things that I wasn't crazy about in this formula. I personally find that it does exaggerate some of the textural issues on my skin, and in those areas it tends to look a little bit more dry. Now, the areas I have no texture, this really looks very beautiful. I just feel like this is a great foundation for those of you with more normal to combo skin. You don't really deal with texture or a ton of oiliness. But if you're someone like me and you do deal with some occasional dryness, especially around the nose, on the chin, between the brows, wherever it may be, I just found that this wasn't perfect for those areas. Now, I did already mention in the Rare Beauty video that I did that I feel like this would go really well with a super dewy primer, but on its own, I just haven't really been impressed with this one. There are some other really lightweight foundations that still look like skin and don't make my skin look more textured. And that is another thing I really like about this one, is that it is so weightless on the skin. So if you're one of those people that likes something really weightless, maybe pick up a sample of this, but I personally wasn't a huge fan. Next up, what do we have here? Of course, they are my It Cosmetics Your Skin But Better CC creams. So I have a couple of different shades. This is the shade Fair Light. This one is actually a little bit too dark for me, but I've kept it just in case I do wear self-tanner. But these are my fair shades. You can see I, for some reason, thought I lost one and then I repurchased it, and now I've just been, you know, going through both of these. I think that this is kind of a cult favorite product for a few different reasons. One, it just gives you immediate medium coverage. It's one of those foundations or CC creams that no matter what condition your skin is in, it's going to make it look good, which I think is a reason why a lot of people always gravitate back towards it. I don't think that this is a really suitable formula if you are someone with more oily skin, but if you are normal to dry with, you know, significant redness, significant acne, this is just going to cover everything and not really make it look like you have a lot of product on the skin while offering that significant coverage. It makes the skin look really fresh. It's definitely more on the dewy side, but I personally just find that it never looks really heavy on my skin. I always mention this when I talk about this product, but if I am sick, like if I have significant textural issues around my nose especially, this is literally the only thing that I've ever been able to apply that makes my skin around my nose look passable. Definitely an incredible product, which is the reason you guys can see that I repurchased it and have used it for such a long time. They did finally expand their shade range. It's still not the best, but I'm glad that they are making efforts. Definitely still some room for improvement though. Next up, we have the Koshiro Aqua foundation. This was the old packaging. This is the new packaging. They reformulated it not too long ago, but it really wasn't a reformulation in my opinion. I've tried both and luckily there really isn't a difference. If there was one foundation that I could just wear for the rest of my life, it would be the Koshiro Aqua, because it's incredible. I wear the shade 002. The shade range is not great, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that this isn't like my wedding day foundation. I think I knew it would be, like, from the first week that I started trying this out. The formula is just so impeccable. It's a water-based foundation, so when it goes onto the skin, it feels water light, but it's not slippy or uncomfortable when you blend it in. It truly just feels like water. It's a light to medium coverage, but incredibly buildable. And what's so gorgeous about this foundation is that there are some buildable foundations out there that they'll build up, but it won't wear the same. It won't look good as you continue to wear it. It'll start to break up more because you have been applying and building more up. This is just the exact opposite of everything that is. This looks like your skin, except in the absolute best condition that it's ever been in. The coverage absolutely seamless. The finish, not too dewy, not too matte, just the perfect skin-like natural finish. This was also formulated for photography, so when you photograph with it, it looks incredible, but in real life, it looks incredible. That's kind of the distinction that I think this foundation has made over other photograph-friendly foundations, is that this actually truly looks like skin in person. So I've just never had a bad foundation day with this ever. It wears incredibly well on my skin. It is very, very expensive, which aside from the shade range is another thing that I really don't like about it. But you get what you pay for. I mean, I've tried just endless foundations, guys, because I love foundation. I love trying foundation a ton. There's really nothing that has beaten this. As long as I've had my channel, nothing has been able to come close to this. You know, when we talk about like holy grail products, this is like a holy grail product. Next up, we have a couple of products from the Pretty Fresh line from Colourpop. This is the foundation and this is the Tinted Moisturizer. The Tinted Moisturizer is a little bit too light for me, which is unfortunate because I just find that it makes me look a little bit pale. So that's the shade 1N. And then this is 30N from the foundation. You can even see in my hand that the foundation is just a little bit better of a shade match for me. I actually did an entire video comparing these two formulas just so people could get a better idea of what would work best for them. I'll make sure to leave that whole video linked down below in case you want to see how they actually look on my skin. But first, starting off with the foundation, I think this is a really, really beautiful foundation, especially if you want a creamy, natural, medium coverage. The more I've worn it, the more I've really grown to like it because it has a soft blurring quality that I think is really flattering. The Tinted Moisturizer, on the other hand, is perfect for someone that wants a really skin-like, very sheer coverage. This definitely sinks really well into the skin. If you're someone that needs your foundation to be super lightweight and really sink down once you've applied it, this is a really nice option. Both of the shade ranges are really inclusive as well. I think there's something really unique and special about the Pretty Fresh Tinted Moisturizer, which is why I really like it. That sort of melt down into the skin quality is something that you don't always find with a more affordable product. I think that the Colourpop Pretty Fresh foundation is more easily like dupable. I think I would reach for this more if I had my right shade, but as you guys can see, I have plenty of foundations I'm trying to go through, so I have been reaching more for the foundation just for that reason, but both are really great. I think it just depends on what you're looking for. I feel like this is like my biggest kept secret on my channel, the foundation that I really wear a ton on an everyday basis. It is the CYO Long Lasting Life Proof Foundation. Now, the reason why it's like my little secret is that it's discontinued, which is why I have 3 of these. I have the shade 102, which is like my perfect shade match pretty much. I also have 103 when I'm a little bit tanner, but I don't want to open this one because I haven't opened it yet. But the Soap & Glory Kickass is the exact same foundation. A couple of people found out that these were pretty much the same thing, except this is twice the price of the CYO. But I honestly didn't care. If it just meant that I could still have access to this formula, I was fine with it. The formula is literally identical, guys. Like, the component, everything about it is exactly the same. So you can still get the Soap & Glory Kickass Longwear Foundation. This is pretty much what I wear on an everyday basis. As you can see, I'm pretty much out of this one. The reason why it's so perfect is that it's on the more light side of a medium coverage, and it reminds me quite a bit of something like the IT Cosmetics CC cream, except the shine is toned down. The texture isn't as thick, just absolutely glides and melts onto the skin. There's a beautiful softness to the actual finish of this. Totally more of a creamy natural. I've just never had a bad makeup day when I've worn this foundation. Perfect for someone if you have textural issues. I've heard of people across skin types really enjoying this one. Completely glides over texture, completely glides over problematic areas, especially if you have, you know, enlarged pores. It almost blurs those a touch, but it doesn't feel like a blurring foundation. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel too thin or too slippery. The texture is just absolutely perfect. But the downfall of this is that one, it's more difficult to find. Right now, I've only been able to find it online at Target, and two, the shade range is really awful. And I doubt they're going to add more shades because there are some rumors that they are going to discontinue this as well. It hurts so bad, guys. This, I think, is like my second favorite foundation. And the fact that it's difficult to find now and the shade range isn't great. So every time I pull these out, there's just like a little pang in my heart. Now, before, when we were talking about the Rare Beauty foundation, I was talking about how it can be difficult to find a really skin-like finish at a more affordable price. Now, this is one of those foundations that I think if you weren't a fan of the Rare Beauty, but you liked some things about it, you would probably really enjoy this one. It's the Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear from L'Oreal. This is one of those foundations that is both long-wearing and incredibly skin-like. It's a really perfect foundation if you have some stuff to cover and you prefer to kind of build up in the areas where you want that coverage, but you want everything else to look like skin. This is a really beautiful product to achieve that. It's not going to look heavy as you build up the product. This reminds me of a lot of the serum foundations that were coming out, you know, a couple of years ago that people were really enjoying, but just never would look good on my texture or on my dry skin. This is everything that I wanted those foundations to be. Super blendable, very thin, but still looks flattering and likes to sink into the skin and become one with it. Shade range is also really great. You can find it at most drugstores. So this is definitely a great drugstore pick from me. Next up, we have the IT Cosmetics Your Skin But Better foundation in skincare. I have the shade 11 Fair and Neutral, and this is a really great shade match for me. This shade range is much better than what IT Cosmetics has done in the past. It's actually really great. I think this shade is slightly too yellow, but once it's blended out, I think it works pretty well. This is one of those foundations that I'm so glad I kept giving it a try and figuring out other primers and other products to work with it, because this is just an incredible foundation. I've found that when I use a super dewy, more emollient or oil-based primer, that this just looks impeccable. Like, it really looks like skin. It's very liquidy. It's more of a skin-like finish. So if you weren't a fan of the IT Cosmetics CC cream and you want something that's a little bit more skin-like, this is definitely one to look into. I would just say that if you have dry skin, pair it with a facial oil or pair it with a really like glassy looking primer. I'll leave my video where I compared this to the IT Cosmetics CC cream if you want a really in-depth review of both of these and how they look on my skin. But yeah, when I use the right primer with this one, it just completely melts in, looks like skin, and lasts. It really lasts on the skin so much longer than I was expecting. Super weightless, absolutely gorgeous. A foundation that's kind of gotten buried for me is this one from Charlotte Tilbury. It's the Light Wonder. I was expecting this one to be a little bit more dewy, and it isn't actually very dewy. It's more of a skin-like finish. This is the shade 1, and I just think that this might be a better foundation for those of you without a ton of textural issues. I've found that as I've continued to wear this, that it tends to look a touch dry in areas around my nose, on my chin. The coverage is light, it's very lightweight as well. I just think that this would maybe work better for those of you with more combination skin that are looking for a light coverage and something that's not going to break up really fast. You know, some more dewy foundations, more skin tints are geared more towards dewy skin. So I think that this actually is a really nice product for other skin types, and I'm just not the correct skin type for this. So I definitely see the potential in this product. It's just not one that I'm reaching for a lot right now. Now, a foundation that I really love is the Flower Beauty Light Illusion foundation. This is, what shade is this? I feel like I always have trouble finding it. It is the shade Ivory L2. And first of all, packaging looks as hell. This is definitely a little bit too dark for me. For a drugstore brand, I feel like this is the closest thing that you're going to come to finding a super, super luxurious formula. You know, the packaging is also super luxurious as well. But Flower Beauty just did an incredible job with this foundation. This is actually exactly what I was hoping the Armani Luminous Silk foundation was going to be, but this is like 10 times better. So it has about a medium coverage to it, but it sets down in a really beautiful way. So this is actually quite long wearing. To me, this is like dewy, pretty makeup that's long wearing. So if you are someone with dry skin and you really want a super perfected look, you want everything to look creamy and even, but you want it to last and sort of set down a little bit, this is just, it is just incredible. But everything that they say this is, it totally is. It's definitely an all-day wear product. Doesn't feel like a lot on the skin as well, which is so nice. They say it's a nude skin feel, like I just said, and that's just very true to how the product actually performs. It's a very, very pretty foundation. Next, we have the Ilia Super Serum Skin Tint. So I really was a big fan of this when I initially bought it. This is one of those skin tint products that if you're looking for something that just like immediately melts down into the skin, this will definitely do that. You can see this shade is a little bit too light for me, unfortunately. One thing I really like about it though is that, here, I'll show you, it just kind of like melts really quickly onto the skin. It feels hydrating, it feels fresh, but you can still see that it was quite liquidy. So it has a nice balance between basically being like a tinted moisturizer product that is more on the thin side. And I think that thin texture is what makes this so blendable. I think most people, when they try it out, are surprised at how skin-like it actually appears once it's applied and how it does just kind of blend right out while still offering some coverage. Definitely think that Ilia is more geared towards dry skin, but if you have been thinking about getting a skin tint product, this is definitely one that I would recommend. It's quite similar to the Milk Makeup skin tint as well. I think the Milk Makeup skin tint is a little bit less coverage. I actually really like the way that this one blends out. It's slightly thicker, but it definitely kind of sinks down into the skin if you give it a couple minutes. This one's a little bit heavier on the skin though. It will give you a little bit more dew than the Ilia will. So I think it just depends on what you're looking for. I think personally, because this is so thin and liquidy and easy to blend, I would think more people would enjoy this one than the Milk Makeup one. But I think there's also a really nice convenience factor of this skin tint. You know, you just click it up, you can apply it really easily with fingers. And you know, some people do want more of that glowy finish, so I think it just depends on what you're looking for. Next up, we have the Fenty Beauty Hydrating Longwear Foundation. Now, this foundation is actually quite reminiscent of the Fresh Wear Longwear Foundation from L'Oreal, but I think this one is even more coverage. I have, what shade do I have? I have the shade 120. The shade is way too yellow for me. This is a very middle of the road foundation. I think it's really nice if you do want a slightly more hydrating, long wear foundation, but you know, the more I use it, there are some others out there that I prefer. You know, if I have the Shiseido and the Fenty sitting out next to me, I'm going to reach for this one. So I think that's the only reason why I haven't reached for this even more. But on its own, I think the formula is really pretty. It really doesn't exaggerate any of the texture that you have. It's more geared towards dry skin, but if you have combination skin, I think you could also get away with this one because it isn't super dewy. It's not really thick. You can see it's more on the thin side and the coverage is certainly there. So if you are looking for a more long wear product with a lot of coverage that is more thin, this is something to look into, I think. Next, we have the MAC Face and Body. I didn't understand this product at first when I had tried it, but I'm so glad that I gave it another shot because there's just something so underrated about this formula. I think if you just blend it out and you don't take the time to understand the formula and what it's trying to do, you're just gonna say, oh, this just looks really greasy and it's giving me no coverage. But I think what you have to do is really take the time to like activate and massage the formula in, and then you'll notice, like it's happening right now, it starts to go a little bit tacky. And then that's when you start to see the coverage really setting down. You can see it really melting down into the skin, and it's a lot less dewy. Now it still has a glow, but it's a lot less dewy. Really looks like skin. But I think what makes this really pretty is that it gives you more coverage than you are expecting. And it looks very refined. There are totally some like light coverage tinted moisturizers out there that they just don't have the refinement, and this formula gives you that light coverage, but it has that refinement. You can tell that the formula was really well thought out. Totally one I would recommend if you are interested in it. A foundation that I love that has been discontinued, and don't ask me why I still have this, I can't let go. This is the Physicians Formula, the Healthy Foundation. Why did they discontinue this, guys? It's so good. And I'm not gonna stay here for too long, but this is exactly what I was hoping the Rare Beauty foundation was going to be, because it's so lightweight, so creamy. It like blurs, but looks dewy, but it's not too dewy, and it offers a bunch of coverage, but not overwhelming amounts of coverage. Why? And lastly, we have the Misha Perfect Cover BB Cream. This is a Korean BB cream that was getting a ton of attention a couple of years ago. I have the shade 13. I actually think I need to get rid of this because it's pretty old now, but I have repurchased this one. It's very pretty. If you like a really natural, creamy looking foundation that is at a great price, you know, this is definitely one I would recommend. Formula feels very high end, and it's because a brand like Misha has so much experience with formulating a product that does cover the skin, but still manages to make the skin look like skin. Now, this one does suck because the shade range is not there, but I have been a fan of it in the past. I don't know if it's something I'll repurchase now just because obviously I have a lot to go through, but it has been one in the past that I have consistently recommended because it's so affordable, and it definitely looks expensive on the skin. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up before you go if you did, and I will leave my cream blush collection and a couple of other collection videos down below so you guys have something else to watch. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you in my next one.